Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. This is episode 45. My name is Ryan Sir, and with me as always is the co-host with the most, Don Helbig. Hey Don, how you doing today?
Ryan, I'm doing great. Summer's just around the corner, my favorite time of year. I love that the temperatures are rising now. I don't need a jacket or anything to go outside. So I'm very happy right now. Very excited that, it's a summer season and all the parks in full bloom. They're all open now daily and things. So couldn't be a better time of year.
Yep, I completely agree. It's we talk about first sign of spring, first sign of summer, and so on. But it's as of the recording right now is the last day of May, and then once you hit June 1st, I know that the scientists will argue, but to me, indisputable summer on June 1st. What do you think about that?
Well, for me, it's Memorial Day. I mean, that to
Hmm.
me is like the kickoff of summer. Although it's unofficial, but you start thinking summer. Then the water parks are all open. Uh, everybody's cooking out. Schools are ending,
Yeah, I agree.
so it's summer. I don't have to calendar in June to think it's summer. I think that right now.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And you know what? To me, Memorial Day to Labor Day is summer. But I was thinking, like, once June 1st hits, nobody can really argue, oh, it's still spring, except for the pretentious people. They're like, oh, wait till the equinox. I'm not waiting for the equinox, dude. You know?
Exactly. Well, Ryan, we want everybody to follow us on Twitter. It is at attractions_GRP. Definitely follow us there. And as we get into this episode, we'll give you one of the reasons why. You can also hear us on all your favorite podcast apps. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And sponsorship opportunities are available. We have a couple of different things that we can do. If you're interested in being a sponsor of the Attractions Group podcast, just send us a message through Twitter, and we'll be in touch, and we'll have a package that's right for you. So, Ryan, my understanding is, and I hear this through the grapevine, some of your friends, and that you don't tell me
Hmm.
anything, is that you have a big weekend coming up here.
Yeah. I'm going to Tennessee.
Dollywood.
Yeah, Dollywood. Which, yeah, obviously, I mentioned it several weeks ago that I went there the second weekend of the season, but I had to make a return trip because Big Bear Mountain's now open, which I'm very excited for. But I need the listeners' help, and this is why I'm bringing this up so early. So I may do another one of those dinner shows. I really enjoyed
Mhm.
Hatfields and McCoys when we went down there back in March or April or whenever it was. But I'm debating between the other two Herschend ones, the Pirate Adventure and Dixie Stampede. So if anyone's been to either of those, shoot us a tweet at attractions_GRP. Let me know what you think. Because I know that a lot of people have done both, and there's lobbying organizations for either one. Kind of leaning towards Dixie Stampede, but the pirate one looks pretty cool too. They both cost about the same, the food's about the same and stuff. So it comes down to which entertainment we want to have. Um, so yeah. So Don, what do we have going on today?
Well, we have a show that you and I have done a couple different times. It's a lot of fun and involves our audience, our followers on Twitter. It's a viewers special. So what we're going to do is we will read some of the tweets that we received over the past couple of weeks. We'd solicited your questions. So tonight is the night that we're going to answer those questions.
Answer them we will. Okay. Well, let's get started. What we'll do is, I guess I'll read the tweets and then we'll get your input and then I'll talk about. By the way, I love your Hawaiian shirt. The cars on it. I haven't seen that one
Yeah.
yet. That's cool.
Yeah, I have about 15 other ones that you'll start to see working around the Bucky's ones that I wear and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I pretty much have all the other shirts that I, had like dress shirts and those kind of things I don't ever wear anymore. Pretty much have retired those, put them away, and just made room in the closet for, I think I have like 16, 17, maybe of these right now, but 15 is kind of the standard I go through. And then there's those two special ones like Bucky's.
Do you, so when they open up a category for podcasting for the Grammys, when we accept ours, should we wear Hawaiian shirts and like tie-dye ties with the Hawaiian shirts? I think that would be kind of fun.
Well, I'm wearing the Bucky's one on that one. So, I
Well,
mean,
then wear a
I guess I
Bucky's
could wear
tie. I'm
tie.
sure that they'll have
I
them.
could. They have them. They do have them. Yes. So maybe I'll do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's without further ado, let's kick this off. So, by the way, so if we're reading your tweet, we really appreciate you messaging us and participating in the show. Couldn't get to all of them,
And
obviously. And
And we use your question. We want you to go on Twitter and say the Attractions Group podcast read my question.
yep, I completely. All right.
And then we'll retweet you.
Yeah, exactly. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Okay. All right. So
Exactly. That's how it
the
works.
first tweet. This is from at Jenny Fiedler 16. If you weren't involved in the theme parks, what would you guys be doing instead? Don, if you weren't involved in theme parks, what would you be doing?
I think I would be doing what I was doing before I got involved on on the side of the theme parks, and that would be broadcasting professional sports, either hockey, maybe baseball, football, something along those lines. That's what I was doing. I was in the American Hockey League as a broadcaster with the Albany River Rats, and I really enjoyed that. So I think that's what I probably would still be doing. But I think that's what I would do. It would definitely be something in sports, if not broadcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
What about you, Ryan?
well, I mean, for me, it's some would argue that I do not work in the industry, but um, the other interest that I have, I'm very passionate about hockey and college football, so I'd probably be far more involved in them. It's there are a lot of opportunities in this market for like minor league hockey, especially a lot of come and go. So
Hmm.
I'm really interested in game day experiences and unique things that people can do, and teams can do to draw people in. I love to see that succeed. I love to see people get excited about it. So if I was going to work in the industry, if I was going to work in the entertainment industry and not be working for a park, I would probably be doing that.
Yeah, real quick to go back to sports, I left just as like social media was coming about, and the things you could do today, with the storytelling, with the printing press today being Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all those kind of things. There'll be so many more tools for me to work with than I had when I was doing that. So I kind of regret that I missed that boat. But love what I'm doing right now though.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I've always thought about is like let's use like a minor league hockey team. There's one that's local here called the Cyclones, and they draw from very little to a lot depending on what's going on. But if they had a special event, let's say Hawaiian Shirt Day, that's a perfect example. If they had Hawaiian Shirt Day and everybody wore their Hawaiian shirts, and the mascot wore a Hawaiian shirt, one thing that I would do that I haven't really seen a lot of teams do for particular events is promote a hashtag with it, like hashtag Cyclones Hawaiian shirt, something like that. And I think that that would go pretty far. Even if you have only 3 or 4 thousand people, if a handful of people are doing it, then that usually makes ripples. So that I agree with you on that front. Cool. All right, so let's
Next.
go to the next one. So, friend of the show at FYE Coasters, who's also on YouTube, so make sure you check him out. He asked a couple questions. The first one is, what's your favorite Midway game or arcade game? Don, what's your favorite Midway game or arcade game?
Wow. I like ring toss. So I would go with that as my favorite Midway game. Arcades, not really too much. I don't have one that would, stand out as my favorite. But for Midway games, it's either going to be ring toss, or if they have something like a football toss, because that's something I think I have a chance to win, by throwing a football.
Just like Greg Brady,
What about
right?
you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
The only arcade game that I play a lot is the like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory game. I have a bunch of sets and stuff because I was saving up for the Kings Island 50th anniversary pillow, and then they ran out of them and then they never replenished. So now I've got a ton of cards and a ton of points, and I'm still trying to decide what to spend them on. So I've been shopping for about a year on that stuff. Yeah. Also like the ball toss, like the you throw
Yeah.
the wiffle ball into the cup. I think that's kind of cool too. All right. So the next one is also from at FYE Coasters. What's your go-to ride at any park on a rainy day? What's your go-to ride at any park on a rainy day, Don?
On a rainy day, wow. I'm still going to go with the like a wooden roller coaster if it's operating in the rain. There's just something about riding it and just getting, pelted with the rain. It's just a unique experience. It's fun. It's memorable. So I would still go with if they have a wooden roller coaster and it's running in the rain, I'm going to be on that.
Yeah, excellent choice. Now I'm the opposite. I'm going to say the dark ride. no matter what it is, because I infamously hate getting my shoes soaked. So, not that I'm like sensitive about my shoes, I'm just sensitive about my feet getting wet. But yeah, I try to stay out of the rain. When I was younger, when I was like 13, 14, I used to love to go to parks in the rain, and I would always get a kick out of it that like the rain would hit your face and it felt like someone was throwing razors at you. But as an adult, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, it is different as an adult. I mean, you have a little bit more, common sense to get out of the rain, in that. But if I'm at a park, especially if I've traveled far to get there, I'm going to still try to make the most of my day. And if a ride's running, I'm riding it.
Yeah, I mean, if I traveled, most certainly, like I'm not going to forego riding their big ride or riding something I want to ride because of the rain. Like at Dollywood, if it was raining one of the days we were there, I'd ride everything. But I'm saying at my home park when I'm there all the time, if it starts raining, I usually hunker down or ride the dark ride or something. Okay, awesome. All right, so the next one, this is a really good one. Actually, two really good ones from the same person. So at Coaster Hour. First question: how is the name and theme of an attraction decided upon? Is it a process that takes a ton of research, surveys, etc., or is the process much more simpler? Don, you've been through this. Tell me.
Yeah, and it's been different many, many different times too, depending on what the attraction is, how many stakeholders might be involved in that. Do you have an agency involved? The corporate office involved? Is it just done? I mean, it can go any way really, and it just every park's going to be different. Every chain's going to be different on how that goes about. Now, when Diamondback uh, was going to be the new ride at Kings Island for the 2009 season, in 2008, it was as simple as just suggesting the name Diamondback. The general manager liked it. Called the chief operating officer, and we kind of like this name, and okay, you're able to do it. But then you fast forward years later with Mystic Timbers, and now we're looking to have a backstory. We're looking to have a creative team involved. The entertainment team gets everybody had a say in trying to form this story, and it took a little bit longer, but at the end of the day you get it right. So it really just depends on what your setup is. If you're a smaller park like say a Knoebels, you're family owned, you can come up with it pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah. And what
But
comes to mind is remember when we asked Dino from Dino's Wonder Wheel how they came up with the name Phoenix for their Vekoma Inverted Coaster. He said, we were coming back from the pandemic and we were rising from the ashes, so we decided on Phoenix, which probably their family sat down at dinner and decided that. But it's different when there's more stakeholders, right?
oh, exactly. Yes, there's going to be a lot more involved with it, and it's become the ride is always great, and that's what the experience is about, but you need more than that nowadays too. You kind of need a little bit of a backstory. You need the theming. You need all those things in play, and there's a lot of different teams involved with that, so it does take a lot longer, but I think the final product's a lot nicer when you have that backstory, you have the theming, and then you get on the ride.
So you're saying, and this is going off of the
Yeah.
original tweet. So, so they're not asking this. I am, but you make a good point, and I completely agree with you. I think that the appetite now is that it's not. You don't want to have a wooden coaster. You want to have a wooden coaster that tells a story, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want a story-driven attraction. I think that's where the industry is right now. The ride alone, it's going to have to be great if you don't have that backstory and everything else with it.
yeah. Do you think that when do you think that pivot happened? I mean, I know it's always kind of been there, but when do you think that pivot happened to where it's like, okay, if you're a credible park, this is almost a requirement? And what do you think caused that shift?
I think just as a couple of parks started doing it, and then it's like anything else that it's a copycat type of thing everywhere. Whether it's sports or the theme park industry, works somewhere. You want to try it, and it just kind of catches on. So I would say, probably around 2014, 15 range is when that started to, become more of a focus. And you had to have, really sometimes the name idea and the backstory, and then what the attraction is going to be comes about sometimes. Before it was the attraction, let's make a story around this. So now sometimes it's the other way around too.
Do you think that in some regards the ride is irrelevant? Like, okay, so when
I don't want to go
no,
irrelevant.
no,
I
no, no.
mean, it's
I'm
the
okay.
ride's
No, no, no,
important.
no. I'm not saying the rides are relevant. I'm not saying that you can, because then you get into like the Jimmy Fallon ride situation where the experience is good
Right.
but the ride is mediocre. But I'm saying like with something like Banshee, like it makes all the sense in the world that whoever decided on Banshee because it's a inverted coaster, so it's like you're flying and so on. So I see where that's coming from, but it would also probably work for a wood coaster too. So it's almost
Yeah,
like you
exactly.
build the theme and the name and the logo and the merchandise and stuff, and you the ride can make sense, but it almost isn't forced to. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, I agree with that. And, you also now, when you're coming up with your name, you want a logo that is going to withstand the test of time.
Hmm.
So 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, it's still as strong as it was its first day in terms of selling merchandise. You look at a ride like the Beast,
Yeah.
that name, that logo, I mean, that has withstood the test of time. And if that ride was coming out today, I mean, just imagine the backstory you could have with that.
Well, and it's funny because with the Beast itself, they almost backfilled the lore into it, and it's funny. I want to bring this up for people that haven't listened to like earlier episodes of the podcast because we have discussed this, but kind of interesting that they announced the ride, they announced the stats, and they had like a little model or at least a sketch of it. They didn't have a name until later, So it's
Oh, yeah.
interesting. Like you would never do that in today's world, you know.
No, the Beast was, so they announced it, in July of 1978. And it was just called, all they said was it's going to be America's Champion roller coaster.
Right.
And just by saying that, some people thought the name was Champion. No, it was just, they just referenced it as it was going to be the Champion roller coaster. And they couldn't decide on the name. And it was, February of 79. So it was going to open. Here we are, what, 2-3 months away from opening, and they just now have the name. So yeah, it's definitely changed over the past 40 years, 40 plus years on how you go about it. So much more involved. The bigger the park, the bigger the chain, the more involved it is, the more stakeholders you have involved. So it does become more of a process, versus being maybe a smaller family-owned park where you could sit down over dinner and come up with an idea.
Okay, so let me do a thought experiment with you on this because this is kind of interesting. So we both agree that part of the reason why names and rides themselves are announced when they're announced is because it's too easy for the average person to get their hands on it. It gets out too widely, and then you don't have any element of surprise. All right. So if you could announce a ride without a name, would you rather do that? Or would you rather announce the theme of a ride, but say it's going to be a roller coaster and then be able to drop another press release like in February and March as to what exactly it'll be? Like, because I think it would be kind of cool to stretch out the anticipation with that. Like, would that work, do you think?
It'd be hard to stretch it out because it's easy for people to obtain a lot of the
Right. I'm
information.
saying
The
like
track.
the public records thing, not a thing. The copyright thing, not a thing. I'm saying
Mhm.
like in a perfect vacuum.
Perfect world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it'd be great to kind of to play it out, and kind of stretch out and have all that speculation. And especially in the world we live in today with social media, just think of all the chatter you would have. How much everybody's looking for the next clue, the next piece of information. Kind of, I'll go back to the what's in the shed for Mystic Timbers. Here was a ride that we're looking at it on paper, very pedestrian. Like, it's a great ride, but you almost have to ride it because you're not going to be wowed by the numbers, of how high it is, how long it is, how fast it is. That doesn't wow anybody in today's world, until you ride it. So you needed something else to keep everybody going. So yeah, if you have something like a what's in the shed type of thing where everybody's talking about it for months before they ever get on it, and you can drop little clues and it all comes together, you're piecing it together. I think in a perfect world, that would be a great thing to do.
Just imagine, I mean, you could even do this. You could, let's say you announce your inverted coaster, your wooden coaster, whatever, in like mid July when the construction
Uh-huh.
becomes evident. And then you start the teaser campaign as to what's going on, Because so you could even like integrate the actual ride itself into like, oh, it's Banshee themed or it's, woods theme. I don't know how to describe Mystic Timbers theme, lumberjack themed, So I think
Yeah.
that would be really cool. But again, that's not the world we live in anymore, but it would be kind of neat.
Yeah, exactly. Great
Yeah,
question.
that was a really good one. And we actually have another really, really good one from Coaster Hour. And this is probably a question that you and I would discuss over a beer off camera because this is such a good question. From what you know, how is it determined if a new addition such as a roller coaster was a good investment for a park or not?
Well, I think obviously, you're looking at attendance, right? Season pass sales attendance right off the bat. You are the first, couple years. Does it bring people from outside of your core market to your park? That's your first thing you're looking at to know if it's a good investment. But then the other piece of it is, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, are people still coming for that attraction?
Look,
The beast, yes, they are. So things like that to where. Um, you're just looking for something. It's not, you're not looking for the immediate return. I mean, it has to be, you're looking down the long haul, 5, 10 years down the road too. Is it still performing for you?
yeah, I mean, I would say that probably the benefit is very incremental because I don't think that you'll see 25 or 30 million dollars the first year. I mean,
No, and you don't. No, you definitely don't. I mean, when a ride costs that much, it takes a while to get that back. So a ride has to be good enough to sustain it. So in that fourth, fifth, sixth year, it's still, everyone's still talking about it. It's still one of your signature attractions, and still bringing people, who normally would not have come to your park. They've heard about it. They got to get there. They're coming from Boston if your park's in St. Louis or something like that.
okay, let me ask you this though. Here's a good twist on it. You had a ride, record breaker, whatever, great ride, loved by everybody, maintenance nightmare and expensive. Is that a success, a failure, or is that like a sideways success?
It has to work all the way around. You can't keep pouring money into it. And I mean, you do put money into every single ride, but it cannot be a major, headache for you. It can't have a lot of downtime. It can't be any of those things to be a success.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, there are different expectations too with that. Like, if a ride has a lot of downtime,
Yeah.
maybe somebody did fly from Vancouver, Canada, to the East Coast of the United States to ride this ride, and then
Yeah.
they don't get to in their 3 day stay. You know?
Yeah. And there's other pieces of it too. Are people buying the merchandise?
Yeah,
Are, you know, people spending multiple days, if you're not a pass holder, are you buying like a 2-day ticket? If you're a destination place, are they staying in a hotel and going to the park, 3, 4, 5 days, just because they can't get enough of it. So those are the kind of things that, you look at too, that, and it's not just one thing. You can't tell, right off the bat, and you're not going to ever, no one's going to increase their attendance by like 30% because you put a new ride in or anything like that. It's a very, mature industry now. You just don't have those kind of increases. So, it's small increases. You sell more passes, you sell more tickets, people extending their stay because they can't get enough of it. There's all those kind of things that you look at.
yeah. Well, how would you parse out the difference? Like, would it be against an industry trend? So, for example, um, if you open a major coaster in 2021, it would be a very big difference between. Let's take out 2020. I know you've been through
Yeah.
that, but that's a completely odd year. But 2021, people were still a little afraid and stuff, and the world was still kind of like in a dumb position. 2022, things were back to normal. So, but comparatively, one really, really drew, but the park next door put in a coaster that cost just as much, but their attendance that same day went up, and visits went up and stuff. Like, is there like a weight you can put it against within the industry to determine if it's a success? Because other economic and outside factors have a lot to do with that. 9/11 made people afraid to
Well,
travel. Recessions make people afraid to spend money, and so on.
yeah, I mean, all those things have to factor into it, Ryan. So, um, it's just not one thing that you look at to know if it was a good investment for the park. I mean, typically, with the manufacturer that you're going to go with, the type of ride you're going to go with, you have a pretty good idea what it's going to do for you. In this day and age, so there's enough information out there to know what the expectations can be, and so it's not like before where you put it out there and you hoped. Now you have enough information to work with that you kind of have a good idea of what it's going to do for your park.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to pull around again for the next tweak. So I want to make sure that I read everybody's name. I'm going to put this tweet up, but uh, Boblo Scooby. I'm sorry, I can't read your whole username. I want to say everybody's on here, but the tweet from them was very good too. How do parks plan to push the boundary of innovation or ride technology, such as Dragster being the first Strata, Maverick having new LSMs at the time? What processes go into deciding and when and who to manufacture the next innovative breakthrough in the industry? So I think the spirit of their question is this something where generally parks would go to Intamin and say, I want a 400 footer. I know you're the one for it. Or typically does Intamin come to the parks saying, I've got this idea, buy it?
It's a combination of both. I mean, you first of all, in terms of pushing the boundaries, and you're looking at high cost attraction, 25, 30, 40 million dollars, 50, even more than that today. There's only certain manufacturers that are going to be able to do those kind of attractions for you. Um, so you're really, you have an idea of what your budget is, what kind of space you have to work with, and what manufacturers can do that. And then you might put out the feelers, here's what we're looking for, and then they come back to you. Or oftentimes, you're at a trade show like IAAPA and you're walking around the floor and you see something that strikes you, you start talking to them, and you get something that's already kind of in development, and that's going to be your new attraction. So um, but the more innovative and bigger and everything that it is, and pushing the boundaries, it is, not everybody can do that. There's only a select number of parks that can really, afford to do that. You're kind of limited there a little bit, but a lot of it though, the manufacturers are going to pitch you all the time. It's like any other type of, you got all these sales reps. They're going to go to all the parks and keep talking about, this would be great for you. You sit down, you listen, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So it works like that.
Yeah. I agree. Not that I've ever been on the receiving end of a sales pitch for a ride necessarily, but one thing that I've noticed that, like, because we talked to a lot of manufacturers, just doing this podcast alone, and all of them have said, like, there are cold calls involved. There's somebody with a wood
Mhm.
coaster manufacturer, and we've talked to two, so you can't narrow down which one it is. But they said, like, yeah, I mean, we call parks. We pitch ideas to parks. And when they do the sales pitch, they use no limits. They build this thing and they try to hype it and stuff, and then they turn around and try to manufacture it. But I know that like one example that comes to mind and is like in the late 98, 99 with the whole Son of Beast thing. A lot of people just assume like, well, Paramount Parks wanted to build this thing to top the beast, blah blah blah. That's true, but it's only partially true because the Roller Coaster Corporation of America actively solicited this ride to them. They said they wanted to do this, and Paramount bought it. It's sometimes it's parks wanting to do something, other times it's manufacturers having this idea and parks figuring out ways to implement it. But I would argue, and you can disagree with this if you want, but I'm pretty sure, but like manufacturers have these things and then the parks kind of just pick and choose what they want to do with it. Like, am I right about that? A park does,
Oh
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
big dogs, Disney and stuff may go and say, I want you to manufacture me a trackless thing. I'm going to fund the R&D and so on. But as far as like for example, like I'm not certain of this. I have no pony in this race, but like the surf coaster at SeaWorld Orlando, I'm sure they didn't go to B&M and ask them to develop something like that. B&M had that idea, maybe solicited them, or maybe they saw it at IAAPA or something, and they implemented that in a way that made sense for their park.
Yeah, or you may go to like say you're at IAP or something, you may go to them and show them a map of your park, and here's an area that I have to work with. Here's what the topography and everything looks like, and then you start the development from that too on some rides.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get to the next one. So this is from another loyal listener, Flight of Taylor at Flight of Taylor on Twitter. Taylor, thank you for being a listener, by the way, and always interacting with us on Twitter. She asks, "How do you know when it's time for an area to get revamped?" Great question.
It is a great question, and usually with that, I mean, the area just needs to be freshened up, and oftentimes it may, you may not notice it as much until the area right next to it got refurbished or a new attraction, and then it kind of stands out a little bit more like that. But normally, every 10 to 15 years, you're gonna, kind of try to freshen something up in the area, whether it's new pavement, you're painting the buildings, you put a new restaurant in, whatever it may be. You're always wanting to try to put something new and fresh in that area. But if you're getting a new ride, that oftentimes is going to lead to the biggest revamping. Is a new ride goes in there. Let's take Mystic Timbers in Rivertown at Kings Island. Well, other things came in. You got the Funnel Cake, location, right across from it now. You did a couple other things in there with the just around it, around Mystic Timber. So I think those are the kind of things that happen. Just really a lot of times a new attraction is going to kind of dictate that you don't want to stop there. Banshee, when that came around, now all of a sudden, you want to revamp the coaster and rename it the Bat and kind of tie it in a little bit, better to the theme with Banshee. So those types of things happen with that when there's a new attraction. A lot of times is that that's going to lead to other things in that area getting redone. But you can, areas are they're going to look worn out. They're going to look tired, and that or the pavement, needs to be redone. So you just look at those kind of things, and it's like your house, when you need to do some updates.
Yeah, it's like when your neighbor paints their house and it's time to paint yours. Or in your case, Don, when the neighbor cuts the lawn, then it's the time to cut the lawn.
When everybody on the street except me, that's when I know.
That's right. So you can wear your Vekoma hat that we got at IAAPA while you're cutting the lawn.
I don't wear that enough. I got to wear that hat more.
I put it in the car because I was going to wear it to the park last weekend. And as soon as I got to the park, I was like, I'm not wearing a hat today. I'm not a hat guy. I wish I was sometimes, but I'm not one. Okay, so but back to the matter at hand. So we talk about. So Taylor asks, how do you know when it's time for an area to get revamped? I want to tangent this a little bit and point out that when an area gets revamped, there are so many partners and so many people involved in that, especially with a large project like Adventureport. Adventureport isn't even done yet as of this recording, and they add so much stuff every day. It's mind-blowing. But I know that like Cedar Fair Creative is greatly involved in that. But they also have Jack Rouse Associates. They're doing some of the design work and stuff. I'm not sure what exactly they're involved with, but the whole area looks great, so they're doing a great job. But the other one that didn't really get mentioned was Kingdom Productions. Shout out to Mike Howard. That did the signage, and the signage looks so good there.
Yeah.
Definitely check them out. If you're a park, Google them because they make great signs and stuff that's specifically for theme park and theme entertainment. But so many hands in the pot. So many people making decisions, so many people deciding the look and feel. I just, for a sliver of the park that's 300 feet long and so much has gone on, I can only imagine what, building Epic Universe is like,
Yeah. And there's times too, you'll redo a certain area of the park, you had a new ride, and then you realize that the section next to it, oh, now that stands out. Now we got to get that one updated so it looks as good as this. So there's little things like that too, that it can be a domino effect.
I'm just always surprised with when parks go with attention to detail when it's not required, how that makes it through the budgetary process, because between announcement and opening is about 6 months. So it's like, do we really need to put a boat in the water? Stuff like that. But hey, they made it. So good for them. I think it adds a lot, but if it was never there, you would never notice,
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right. Another friend of the show, Jim Flugel, at Jim Flugel. Water-based rides are part of the theme park world, such as log flumes. And as technology has advanced for coasters, are water-based rides still relevant for theme parks in the future, or is it a dying industry? Don, are water-based rides dying?
I think they are still very relevant. I think that they're important. Especially parks that have the temperatures are 90s and that you want to go cool off on something. I think they are part of the fabric of certain areas of parks. The flume rides are great. So yeah, I think they're still relevant. I think they're going to be around, and I think everything goes in cycles. That you're going to see a wave of that. It might be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but there's going to be another wave of water attractions going.
I think we're going into one actually, because when they removed Pilgrim's Plunge / Giraffica, yeah, that's right, from Holiday World, and the same one from Cedar Point, nobody added like extreme water rides for a long time. And now we're getting the one at Six Flags Over Texas, the Aquaman. Um, so that shows that the appetite is back for it. And by appetite I mean parks, not guests. Guests love this
Hmm.
stuff. You know,
No, they do.
yeah. I mean, I really think so. I think that we're going to see more stuff like that over the short term, mainly because you can do really good water rides far more inexpensive than roller coasters, and a lot of times when you open a ride, the visual appeal is part of the marketing plan for it. And if you look at the Aquaman thing, that coming down and going back and forth and splashing, like Good Morning America, stuff like that, everybody would eat that up. So
And the other thing about these water rides, you know, whether it's a raft ride or it's the flume, one of the things about that you always see is just how much fun the friends and the families are having, together. And I think that's important. That's why those attractions are always, I think, to me, are always going to have a place in the industry, is because it's those rides that everyone can do together and have a great time.
I agree, and I can back that up. Not necessarily with the water ride, but the whole riding together thing. Um, just with the new Zamperla barrel spinner thing that they opened at Kings Island the other day. I've had both a person in person, so a friend of mine, a person in line that I overheard, and somebody posting on social media, all three saying that it's so nice to have a ride that they can ride with their whole family. I think that the appeal
Hmm.
there is incredible. You know.
Oh yeah.
All right. Very good. Okay, so at Ki Coaster, sorry, uh, Coaster Guy Ki is his name. It's Ki Coaster Guy is the username. How far in advance does a park official, let's say a GM or PR guy, know about a large capital investment coming? And as part two, it's a two-parter. How important is secrecy? Is it good or bad that folks dig through public records or take photos from planes trying to figure out what you're doing? Don, I'm not even going to ask you to answer this question because I don't want to deal with the repercussions of your answer.
What do you think my answer is going to be here,
Well,
Ryan? What do you think I'm going to
I
say?
um I know that I've heard certain rants from you about parks work so hard to build these themes and to build up
They
anticipation.
do, they
You
do.
know.
But I also want to say this. Okay, there was a time the only real source that anyone had to know something was the traditional news media. So you didn't have social media or anything like that. But nowadays, social media is everywhere. Um, it gets people talking. I don't think it's a bad thing that people are talking about your park. Um, if they figure it out, they're still talking about you. They're still getting excited about it. They all still want to come to opening day, all those kind of things. So you just see the way it's evolved. It's the world we live in today. People are going to find out. Now, the park still has, for the most part, they don't know what the color is going to be. They may not know the name. They're not going to know the logo. Those kind of things. You still have that almost until the end. But if somebody knows it's a roller coaster before you say it's a roller coaster, it's not the end of the world because they're talking about you. They're getting excited. They're planning their visits for the next year. So it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Honestly, I don't think any ride announcement has ever sold a ticket ever. I think that the people that care enough to dig into this stuff, we're gonna come ride it anyway. Um, I think that it could rob a park of a wow moment. And
No, it does do that. I mean, for sure it does that. And, having been the PR person that spends a lot of time, planning the teaser campaign and the announcement, and it's, you know, that's a little bit, disheartening when you put that much time into it and somebody spoils it for you. But, I always say the ones that go digging and they're calling, the city to get blueprints and putting it on YouTube and breaking all of that kind of stuff. They're the type of people that like to know what their presents are before Christmas.
yeah, do you think they're the ones that shake them and stuff just to make predictions? Their
Yeah.
parents had to wrap their like Game Boy in clothes, so they think they're just getting clothes.
No, it's no, it's all good though. Really, I mean, it's fun now, and and I like it as much as anyone else. Just going through social media and just seeing all the speculation of what's going on out there in the industry, and seeing who came the closest to being right. I think that's a fun thing now too. Is is just seeing, how much somebody might hit, or, how much they miss by. That's also fun too, is that somebody just adamant it's going to be this and then it's not. I think that's the greatest thing.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. The first half of the question was how far in advance does people within the park know about these installments?
Depends on what it is. I mean, it can be anywhere from, depends on how long it takes to install it too, is, 12, 18 months, sometimes up to 22, 24 months, but usually, less than 2 years. You definitely know. You don't know 5 years from now 100% you might have an idea on the board what you're going to do. But in terms of, it's confirmed, this is what we're doing, start planning, for the announcement that, you're normally going to be anywhere from like 12 to 18 months for the most part on average. There's going to be other times you don't know, maybe until 5 or 6 months out sometimes if it's a smaller project. But if it's going to be a big roller coaster, it's going to be over 3,000-4,000 feet long, and those kind of things, you're going to know at least minimum 12 months out.
So my understanding of how the process works, on especially on a corporate level, and feel free to pick this apart if I'm wrong, but basically the further out you go, the less information you have. So essentially, it's like, okay, 2030, it's going to be a big capital year, and then closer to like 2025, 2026, it's like, okay, we're going to do a coaster. 2027, it's like, okay, it's going to be a hyper. 2028, it's like, oh, we're going to do a cowboy theme. Is that kind of how the hierarchy breaks down?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know, exactly what something's going to be, 5-10 years out. It gets closer to it, then you start to know a little bit more about it. And when you're in a PR position, or you're a GM, you're running your park, and it's almost like what's in front of you. It's great what happens 5 or 6, 7 years down the road, but you're not focused on that. You're focused on, more what's happening today, what's happening next month, what's going to happen within the next year or two.
Yeah. But I mean, when it comes down to it, you know, would you know like several years in advance, like when the next big capital year is going to be, or is that kind of dropped in later, kind of like when, when the 2 to 3
Sometimes you
year
do.
thing?
I mean, sometimes, yeah. I mean, you know that, say 2025 is going to be a big year, 2029 is going to be a big year. I mean, so you kind of look at it that way. I mean, you kind of know how that's earmarked, but that shifts a lot of times too.
Oh yeah,
You have different things. I mean, who knew that COVID was going to come and what that was going to do to the entire industry? Or, something new comes about and you might move something up because we got to get on board with that before everyone has that. Those kind of things too come into play.
yeah, and economic downturn. That's something that's relatively unpredictable. I mean, that's hand in hand with COVID. I heard Kings Island was going to open a roller coaster in 2020, but COVID hit. Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah, you
never
just
know.
never know exactly. Yeah, yeah.
You have to be willing to adapt on the fly in this industry.
Well, yeah, that's true. But also like a lot of planning goes into this stuff. I mean, I don't want to,
Hmm.
I don't want people to walk away from this bit of the podcast thinking that, next year is going to be a B&M hypercoaster. Oh no, just kidding. We're building a restaurant. No, it's still construction. It's still, a lot of work, a lot of hands in the pot. Sometimes you're past the point of no return, and sometimes you're way past the point of no return, and then you have to pull back, and that looks really bad. Like I remember, I don't remember which one it was, but do you remember like 20 years ago? And this was pre-bankruptcy Six Flags when they announced whatever that Batman Dark Ride is for one of the parks, and then about 2 months later they said, "Just kidding, that's not in line with our plan." Do you remember that? I don't remember which park it
Oh
was.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just imagine all the people that bought passes and stuff because they were excited about that, only to find out that they're not doing it anymore. You know, at least with COVID, with things like Iron Gwazi and stuff, they opened it late, and I think that was a controversial decision for the same reason that I mentioned before, because people probably bought annual passes and stuff, anticipating riding it. But at the same time, it's still coming. Imagine if they,
Yeah. Now here's another thing that I'll throw out there when we're talking about how far in advance and everything. With the information that's available today, you're able to make wiser decisions on your new capital plans. You're not going to run the risk of missing as much as you might have, 15, 20, 25 years ago when you put something in. Maybe it missed the mark on what everybody was looking for, what your audience wanted and things. So now with as much information that's out there, you can look at ridership numbers, you can look at how something's doing at another park. if it's going to fit what you're doing. So there's just so much more information out there, and all that information is used in making these decisions. So it's no longer just sitting in a room. Let's put this here. Let's put that there. You're gathering all this stuff together now, and making sure that the decisions you make, might not be what every single person wants, but it's the right decision at that time more often than not.
Yeah, I would rather make an educated decision than a $25 million guess any day of the week, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, very, very good. Good conversation out of that. Okay. At 50 or sorry, at 511 Brian Wells on Twitter. Do you see a potential contraction of large corporate parks, not necessarily selling, but leaving markets? What are your thoughts on that, Don?
Well, I mean, I don't think like in the foreseeable future, the next, 5 or so years, no. But I mean, it's if a park's not doing well, with attendance and there's no growth opportunity, and those types of things are happening. Yeah, I could see that down the road, but short term, foreseeable future, however you want to define what that length is, I don't think so.
So short term, you don't think so? I mean,
No, I don't think you'll see parks leaving a market. No. Um,
the
I think the ones that are there will be there. Might not have the same ownership all the time, but I think for the foreseeable future, those parks will still be around. But as you get down the road, who knows? But short term, foreseeable future, I don't think that'll happen. I don't think you'll see any parks, just up and
yeah,
leaving.
I mean, I agree. And it was funny because I had this conversation with my girlfriend last weekend because she was talking about, Cedar Point's been around for 150 years and it's going to be around 500 years from now because it's been around so long. But it's like, Geauga Lake was around for over 100 years and then it was gone one day. And there are dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds of other examples of parks that were around for decades in the least. And now they're
Hmm.
gone. It's
Yeah, I
because
mean, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if he's talking about like the large, grouping of parks here, not quite. Now, if you're talking about a one-off, that's a whole different story there. If it's just like a family-owned, park, those it gets tougher and tougher every year for those to survive. So that can happen. But in terms of, if you're talking about these chains of parks, I think that's what his question is from a chain. I don't think from a chain you're going to see that
well,
anytime,
I
soon.
I
But
I agree. I don't think that we've got like an Astro World on our hands or anything. But you remember how many times the parks like swap spit in the past 20 years? Uh, like Schlitterbahn sold to Cedar Fair, Six Flags out of certain parks, Six Flags back into the same
yeah,
parks. I think that anything's possible. Now, as far as
yeah. I mean, there's always going to be the changing hands and all that. That's just a reality of the industry that's going to happen. It happens in all these different types of entertainment industry. Look at sports. I mean, those teams get sold left and right too. So it's the same thing in our industry.
Yeah, well, I would argue that like, the Oakland A's leaving for Las Vegas would be a lot more difficult than, Six Flags over Georgia
That's a
moving.
sore subject with me, by the
Oh,
way.
you're one of the 8 fans in attendance.
No, I mean, we would need like 3 podcasts for this, but no, I mean, the fans in Oakland, they deserve a lot better, and there's a reason they don't go to the game. And you have an owner that won't spend any money. He's going to reap the benefits if they move to Vegas, and um, yeah, it's just what he's done to the fans in Oakland and holding the city in some ways, hostage like that by not wanting to use any of his own money. And this guy's one of the richest owners in baseball, So and you just ruined my night, Ryan, by mentioning that.
Well, you can go watch some 30 for 30s later to feel better. Um, okay, but I'm saying like it's that operation, as difficult as it is definitely easier than moving a theme park or whatever. But as far as leaving markets, like we're not addressing the actual question. You know, because it's there are certain parts of the country, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, places like that, where there are some parks peppered in, but there aren't like major parks. And I would argue the industry simply isn't in those markets. I can't think of anywhere would leave the market necessarily where it's oversaturated or it doesn't have the support in the area. I think that if anything, some of them are underserved. Like I think New York
Hmm.
City. I think it's insane that with New York City being as big as it is in the metropolitan area, that like Dorney Park, the New Jersey Six Flags, and all those other things aren't just packed to the gills every second of every day simply by the amount of people. So I think that there's growth potential. You know,
No, I think so too. I think there's the timing's going to have to be right, but yeah, I think there's an opportunity there.
yeah. I mean, if you look, just as an example, um, for a a similar market, like obviously there are huge differences, but like let's say L.A. Um, that I mean that's not the same thing as New York, but that supports four major parks, four huge.
Hmm.
So you got Knott's Berry Farm, you've got Universal, you've got Disneyland, and then you've got Magic Mountain all in that market. Um, New York doesn't have anything like that, and I think it could. They're building a bunch of stuff in upstate. We've talked about that. You got the Legoland up there. You've got what was the thing we talked about last week? It was like it was another thing in upstate New York that was like a themed thing. But anyway, they got stuff in upstate New York, but maybe that's a property value thing. But I think like the New Jersey, New York, northern Pennsylvania area, if anything, will grow. You know.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, Ryan. This now we're getting going off the rails here a little bit with this, but say Ryan, you won the lottery, you got a couple $1 billion or whatever, and you want to build a park somewhere. Where are you going with it?
Houston, Texas.
You're going to
Hmm.
Houston.
You know why? Because
Okay.
Houston doesn't have direct service. There have been a bunch of people that caressed Houston about building a park there and have
All
not.
right.
It can be a year-round operation. There's plenty of people. There's plenty of money. The way that Houston, like as far as the economy is set up, it was basically recession-proof in 2008. Most of Texas was just because of the way that just the industries that are there weren't affected by it. I would very confidently say Houston. What about you?
I like Houston, but I would also take a hard look at Nashville.
So Nashville, also a good choice. Why did they close Opryland?
There's so many different theories on that. I don't know. I mean, they say they didn't draw well.
I
It was crowded every time
don't
I
know if
went.
that's true or not because
Yeah, I mean, it was crowded every time. I had season
well,
passes, so I thought it was I loved it. When I went there in the '80s, and I was surprised to hear that it wasn't going to be there. But that land was I don't know that they own the land. Maybe that's what happened too.
either they didn't own the land or it was a situation where the land was far more valuable than the park, which could happen to
Something like
anything.
that. Exactly. So maybe it was something with the land. I do know that was always that was kind of a common theme of the different stories, about what to do with the land. Maybe it was more valuable or they didn't own it, so whatever. But I think that city has grown so much and where it's located. I think Nashville could be a perfect spot for a park someday. But you and I did not win the lottery, so neither of those places are going to
Yeah,
happen
but
right
if
now.
you did win the lottery and you want to invest in our park idea, then send us a DM on Twitter. All right. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I wanted to do some food for thought because they had a park. It was a successful park. It was a well-known park, and it closed. So, but I agree. I think that it's you could build on the knowledge of what's happened. Probably be outside the city in the Franklin area, somewhere around there. But yeah, Nashville would be a fantastic one. Cool. All right, last tweet. So we got Mitchell at Mitchell 186 210 78. Thank you for the tweet, Mitchell. Weird one. How does a park sound system work? Is it all ground wired? Say like Cedar Point, for example. Don, is Cedar Point sound system ground wired?
I have no idea. My background is PR, marketing, and now social media. I have no idea how sound works. I'm not a tech person. Ryan, you're a lot closer than I am to this type of work.
So I don't know if the stuff is ground wired or not. So what I do know is that the modern sound system, particularly I believe at Kings Island, it has fiber running to it, so for the best audio fidelity. But fun fact, and if you ask this question, you probably know this already, but this is a fun fact for everybody else. The audio in modern theme parks is zoned. And by zoned, I don't just mean that, Fantasyland has different music than Cowboy World or whatever. It's zoned in a matter that's way smarter than that. So, for example, when the parade's coming through, you're not going to get the audio until the parade gets there. And you can see that in even seasonal parks now. Grand Carnival at all the Cedar Fair parks had that upgrade. That's why the parade kicks off at 7 o'clock or whatever. 7:15 comes, you're at the fourth show stop, and you're still hearing promos for the parade. And it's not until right before the parade gets into view that you hear it. So that's called zoning. That runs off the time code stuff. If you want to learn more about that, we had that episode with Joe Rossi from Rossi's Famous Fireworks. So we talked about the time code and how that syncs up the lights and the sound and the drones and the fireworks and so on. But is it grounded? We're not the right people for that. But awesome question.
No,
though.
not at all.
Very cool.
No, we appreciate your questions. And again, if we used your question, please, tweet that the attractions group answered my question, and we will retweet you.
Awesome. Yeah, make sure you tag us at attractions_GRP. All right, Don. I didn't think we'd fill enough time with this episode, but we're just now at the next segment, and we're 55 minutes in, almost 56 minutes.
So we got to get this in
let's
quick.
get fast. So really quickly, this is a segment we like to call the Pick Six. What do we got going on first, Don?
Number 1, Six Flags Saudi Arabia. They're scheduled to open in October of 2024.
Okay. So I understand that Six Flags is just an operational partner, or they're just lending their name or something on that. I'm going to look up the article itself.
6 theme lands here, record-breaking rides and attractions. They're going to have what they're calling the world's longest, fastest roller coaster.
That sounds awesome.
Sounds great on paper.
Yeah. I remember that wasn't the one in like Abu Dhabi that was supposed to be like a 500-foot coaster that had a lift hill and stuff, and it was like, yeah, let's chalk that up to something that's never going to happen. Saudi Arabia actually has a lot of money. Let's say it's from oil. I'm not sure. Actually, I am sure because they're very clear about that. But they're trying to bring more entertainment to Saudi Arabia, and they're willing to shell out tons of money for it. That's why I'm actually entertaining this as news rather than just fluff. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they would do that. As you remember, actually you don't remember but WWE puts on an event there every year in like a 60 or 70,000 seat soccer stadium. The Saudi government paid them something like $300 million over the course of like 5 years just as an agreement to do that. So they're putting a lot of money into this stuff. Would you go?
If I might. It's not something that it would be 100% my bucket list, but if the opportunity was there, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to visit the park, but I don't know. I kind of like being in America, so it's whatever. Okay, story number 2. So, Splash Mountain number 2, the one at Disneyland, has done its final splash. So rest in peace, Splash Mountain. Okay, so Splash Mountain obviously closed at the Orlando Park for Mohana. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Overhaul several months ago, but the Disneyland one outlasted this a little bit. Always labeled as controversial. It's based off of the movie Song of the South, which would not be acceptable to be produced in today's world. Disney has retracted it from all of their materials. They act like it didn't exist, which is probably the right thing to do, in my opinion. But the ride is closing, and it is closed at Disneyland. Will you miss Splash Mountain at Disneyland, Don?
Oh, absolutely. I'm one of the generations of Disney park fans that absolutely loved Splash Mountain at both Disneyland and Magic Kingdom at Disney World in Orlando. So yeah, definitely. the thing about Splash Mountain, and Robert Niles, he wrote an article about this. He calls out three lessons of Splash Mountain. He said flume rides are awesome. Good animatronics beat screen-based animations for telling stories in attraction spaces, and music always elevates the ride experience. And Splash Mountain, it brought all three of those to the table.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree with all of that. Yeah, so rest in peace, Splash Mountain. Disneyland is a place that'll never be completed. I'm sad to see it go. Everybody's sad to see it go, but we have a new ride to look forward to. You know,
And what is that we always say? That it's okay to respect history, but you cannot revere it.
that is true. Don, what's story number 3?
Six Flags, they got a retail partnership. Talk about that, Ryan.
Yeah, so Six Flags is partnering with Amazon, and there was another one too. Let me pull up the article itself. Um, so yeah, they're partnering. This is Six Flags Magic Mountain, and sorry, I feel totally unprepared. Okay, so Amazon and Coca Cola.
What else?
Yeah, I know, totally. Well, it's the thing is, I read these articles and then I put them in my document and stuff, and then you ask me about it, and I don't remember what I had read earlier. Okay, so but anyway, they're partnering with Amazon and Coca Cola for retail establishments within the parks. Um, this is something it's not particularly new, especially for Six Flags, because they never shied away from the corporate partnerships. But these are some big ones here. Two of the largest Coca-Colas, or two of the largest retailers on earth. Yeah. So this is the Six Flags in California, so Valencia, California, which is Magic Mountain, as well as Great America and Jackson, New Jersey. They will introduce an Amazon Coca-Cola sponsored Quick Six micro market that leverages Amazon's emerging just walk out cashless store technology without having to wait to check out at the register. Coca-Cola beverages and snacks will be are widely sold at each restaurant or each establishment. I can't even read now, Don. We should not record these things. I don't know what my
Why
problem.
didn't you just say grab and go? That's all, like a grab and go kind of concept there. That the thing that stands out to me about that is just it's a way to minimize your wait time. Your time's valuable when you're at a park, and that grab and go is going to help you save some time.
I completely agree. The technology has existed from Amazon for quite a while. What they do is I don't know exactly how it works. I imagine it uses near field communication, but what it is you grab something off the shelf, you put it in your basket, you walk out the store, the door to the store, the portal in the store knows exactly who you are and the products you took and charges your Amazon account. If they could do that with everything, first of all, it'd be very difficult to have theft, because you'd definitely have to take something out of the packaging or else you get charged for it, in which it's not theft. And secondly, you're right, the lines would be way shorter. I can't wait till something like this is put on a larger scale with more stuff.
And what's next?
All right. So keeping up pace with our overrunning show already. Dynamic Attractions. Dynamic Attractions sold for $2 million, which is a bummer because that's pennies on the dollar, but they did avoid being liquidated. Dynamic Attractions is responsible for Soarin', the Harry Potter ride, Forbidden Journey, and they were sold to a Hong Kong-based financial services firm. I don't know what a Hong Kong-based financial services firm would do with Dynamic Attractions. I imagine they're going to put them in better financial shape and then resell them, but I'm fine with that because they do fantastic work, so I don't want to see them dissolve. You have any thoughts?
Yeah, it seems like it's one of those things. I think you're onto something there, where it's a buy and flip kind of a situation.
Exactly. All right, what's the next one, Don?
Free beer at Busch Gardens and SeaWorld coming back this summer. Now, I remember back in the 80s and 90s when I was going to Busch Gardens, whether it's in Williamsburg or Tampa, they always had the Budweiser beer sampling. So that is coming back.
I miss, the first time I visited SeaWorld and Busch Gardens was right on the cusp before the InBev purchase. I kind of miss that. I miss that was like a cool thing in the Clydesdales and all that stuff, but I'm glad to see that back too, aren't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like a frat boy, like, kegger kind of thing.
Not that kind. You just go there. You just want to sample it. That's all it is.
Well, yeah, and the main thing that I really wouldn't mind is kind of like with the Coca-Cola experiences in Atlanta and even the World of Coke is, and if you can sample stuff from around the world and so on, like make it classier. I think that would be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome, exactly. Man. We are really rushing through this. Anyway, so number 6. The Disney CFO discusses how Disney Plus influences theme park installments. So it's funny how no one's ever discussed this. But he kind of mentioned in an interview that they make a lot of decisions, or they at least keep the data on what intellectual property to use based on how people react to it on Disney Plus. Don't you wish you had a streaming service at your local park so that you can decide what people like and do a theme based off of that?
Oh yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, when you have all that information, it is so cool what you can do with that and how you can use it to, just for all your planning, just everything else. And I thought it was an interesting read.
Yeah, I did too. Awesome. Hey, we popped through that really quickly. That was the fastest pick 6 ever. That was like a pick 5, except we did 6. That was a
That's
stupid
right.
joke. All right. Well, Don, any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, I got a little bit of breaking news for
Uh-oh.
everybody here. I think that mark your calendar, August 17th. More details to come, but August 17th, I am going to do a Buc-ee's meetup in Richmond, Kentucky.
Boy, this is the first time I've heard about this, just for the record. That's cool.
That's what I said. Breaking news. It just developed. No, but I'm going to I'm going to be heading down to Tennessee for that weekend. So that morning, I'm going to be going to Buc-ee's. I want all the other Buc-ee's fans, if you're available, let's all get there together. Let's get a big group photo. Let's spend hundreds of dollars. Let's just, do the Buc-ee's
You should
thing,
make
right?
a big patty melt, like wedding cake, and eat that together.
Yeah, well, they do things like tweet ups and everything else. So I'm doing a Buc-ee's meetup. It's the first of its kind. So again, August 17th, I'll have more details. What time? Probably around 10 a.m. or something like that. Around that range. But just how many Buc-ee fans we can get to all meet up at the same time in Richmond,
That
Kentucky.
would be fantastic. We should do a show from Buc-ee's someday. That'd be cool. Awesome.
We
Yeah,
should.
that's fantastic. August 17th. That's perfect. All right. Well, again, thank you for listening again this week. We really enjoyed these tweets. These were fantastic questions. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. We're gonna do this every couple months, maybe every 2 months or so. So keep an eye out for it, because we'll hopefully field your question next time. Make sure that you follow us on your favorite podcast apps: Google, Spotify, Apple, whatever. Follow us on YouTube by searching for the Attractions Group Podcast. All these links are in the description. And DM us if you are interested in any of the sponsorship opportunities. But once again, I'll be in lovely Tennessee. I'll stop at Buc-ee's for you, Don. And
you do that. I'll enjoy your pictures. Show me what you got to eat while you're there, and take pictures of the new merchandise. They do the same thing. When it's seasonal, have different things coming out different times of the year. You'll be in June, so maybe some of the 4th of July stuff will be coming out. So definitely share those.
Yeah,
photos.
I don't have a Buc-ee shirt yet. I actually don't have any Buc-ee's apparel. I bought a bunch of stuff. I bought like the magnet, the breath mints with it's like a.
Oh wait! You have no Buc-ee's apparel?
None. I've got tons of Buc-ee stuff, but no apparel. So I haven't found a shirt that called my name yet, but I really want one. I'm serious.
Okay.
I'll get a Actually, I'll try to get a Buc-ee's Hawaiian shirt, but I'll send you a picture to make sure that we're not twinning or anything. So hopefully it's a different one from what you have. Not that you won't buy it in August next time you go down, but awesome. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great week.